Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000.
JayZ is reportedly under intense scrutiny after claims spread online that his Los Angeles mansion was searched following the release of the Epstein-related files. What people believe was uncovered has sent shockwaves through the hip-hop world. The billionaire mogul is now being tied to allegations that have the entire industry on edge, with accusations so serious they could threaten his legacy if proven true. Behind the massive empire, the polished public persona, and the Rock Nation brand, JayZ is alleged to have been connected to powerful circles and questionable behavior that led to his name surfacing in some of the most controversial documents in recent memory. These reported connections are said to run far deeper than anyone expected. The story unfolding around one of hip-hop's biggest figures is being described as darker, more layered, and more disturbing than most imagined. From long-standing industry grooming claims to alleged links with convicted predators, critics say the details involve timelines, documents, and insider accounts. What's up, fam? We're about to get into some serious industry politics that have the hip-hop community buzzing like never before. This goes beyond surface-level chatter. It's about power, corruption, and how the music business has allegedly shielded certain figures for decades. Before we dive all the way in, let's keep it real. Social media has been in a frenzy over rumors connecting JayZ to the Epstein files. Twitter is heated, Instagram is flooded, and everyone has something to say. But the goal here is to break down what's claimed to be real versus what's being exaggerated, because misinformation is everywhere. And before anyone writes this off as another conspiracy or an attempt to tear down a successful black man, understand this conversation centers on alleged documented ties, industry relationships, witness statements, and patterns said to stretch back years. This isn't about jealousy or hate, it's about accountability. And here's where things really heat up. The music industry has long been accused of enabling abuse of power. We saw it with R. Kelly. We're seeing it play out with Diddy. Now attention is shifting toward other major names. The real question isn't whether misconduct exists, but who has managed to avoid consequences for so long. When the Epstein files hit the internet, people immediately started combing through hundreds of pages, searching for familiar names and hidden connections. The discussion points to court records, sworn depositions, flight logs, and private messages. Within those materials, several mentions of JayZ stood out and immediately caught public attention, sparking waves of screenshots and online debate. According to what's outlined in the files, his name appears multiple times in relation to industry functions, exclusive gatherings, and business-related meetings. These were not quick or passing references. The descriptions suggest repeated contact and ongoing associations with individuals who are now identified as convicted predators. One document reportedly lists JayZ on a guest roster for a private Hamptons event dating back to 2003. Another reference mentions business conversations involving major figures in the entertainment world. Being named in documents does not equal guilt, but it does raise serious questions about the circles he was part of and what he may have been aware of at the time. In the music industry, connections are everything. Who you know often determines deals, access, and long-term success. But when those connections include people later exposed for crimes involving minors, the conversation quickly becomes uncomfortable. Once these alleged links surfaced, the internet exploded. The hashtag tying JayZ to Epstein trended for days as people dug up old interviews, photos, and partnerships, trying to map out a timeline. Beyoncé's fan base rushed to defend him, yet even some longtime supporters admitted the situation raised concerns. Still, this story goes beyond documents and name mentions. The alleged ties between JayZ and controversial figures stretch back much further than many realized, forming a network that spans decades. One key connection often brought up is Harvey Weinstein, which many see as essential to understanding the broader picture. This was not casual Hollywood mingling. JayZ and Weinstein were connected through multiple projects over the years, involving major business deals that reportedly earned both men millions. They collaborated on various film-related ventures, including documentaries and music-focused projects. Content produced by JayZ was distributed through Weinstein's company, and the were frequently seen at the same high-profile industry events. Cannes appearances, Oscar after-parties, and private gatherings placed them in the same spaces repeatedly. JayZ even publicly acknowledged Weinstein in interviews, crediting him with helping him learn the film business. These were not quiet interactions, but public thank yous, red carpet mentions, and formal partnership announcements. This was not a surface-level association. It was a relationship developed over time, sustained through repeated collaborations, and used for shared advantage. For anyone unfamiliar with how these power networks work, it's important to understand that at JayZ's level, every relationship is calculated and strategic. At that level, business relationships don't happen by chance. They're built intentionally over time, kept alive through constant contact, and used for very specific goals. Nothing is accidental when you're operating at the top. Weinstein was widely seen as a power broker in Hollywood, someone who could change careers with a single call. For JayZ, who was pushing beyond music into film and other entertainment spaces, Weinstein's support carried serious weight. But that raises an uncomfortable question. What was the price of that access? And how much did JayZ really know about what Weinstein was doing behind the scenes? Once Weinstein was exposed and the allegations became public, those old connections started to look very different. People began questioning who knew what and when, because in Hollywood, very little stays hidden. The idea that someone could be that closely tied to Weinstein and be completely unaware of his behavior is hard for many to accept. And this is where things take a sharp turn. Nicki Minaj reportedly decided she was done staying silent about what she claims to have seen and heard in the industry. She went on a lengthy Twitter spree that sent the internet into a frenzy, making allegations about JayZ's past that caught many people off guard. Nicki spoke about his alleged relationships with younger women in the industry, suggesting patterns that she claimed stretched back decades. She brought up Foxy Brown, questioning the nature of their relationship when Foxy was allegedly only 15. She mentioned Aaliyah, implying JayZ showed interest in her during her teenage years. She even raised questions about Beyoncé, challenging the commonly accepted timeline of when they first met and became involved. According to Nicki, the Foxy Brown situation stood out as especially troubling. She alleged that JayZ was involved with Foxy while she was underage, and claimed this was an open secret within the industry that no one wanted to address. She shared old clips and interviews that she said backed up her claims, including a well-known Wendy Williams interview, where Foxy made comments that many later viewed as suggestive. Nicki has been in the game long enough to understand how the industry works. She's collaborated with major figures, attended the private events, and heard the conversations most people never hear. When she talks about industry politics, people pay attention because she's been around it firsthand. And at this stage of her career, she doesn't appear to be protecting her position. What really shook people was when she went beyond individual accusations and started talking about industry power structures and alleged rituals. She wasn't presenting this as random behavior by one person, but as part of a system where powerful men allegedly use their influence to take advantage of young women trying to break into the business. The reaction to her posts was immediate. Her mentions filled up with people demanding more information, sharing their own experiences, and connecting patterns across different industry figures. At the same time, there was strong pushback from JayZ supporters and industry voices who worked to dismiss or discredit her claims. What made Nicki's statements particularly damaging was that she wasn't isolating JayZ. She was describing what she claimed was a broader pattern involving multiple powerful figures, suggesting the issue was systemic rather than a series of isolated incidents. Let's walk through the timeline that has everyone paying attention, because this is where the concerns really start to surface. This takes us back to the late 90s, when JayZ was rising in the industry, building his name, and forming the relationships that would eventually help turn him into a powerhouse. According to multiple claims that have circulated over the years, there were allegations of a recurring pattern involving young women who were trying to break into the music business during that period. The allegations include a relationship with Foxy Brown that allegedly started when she was just 15 years old and JayZ was 27. These claims aren't new. They've been circulating for years, but recent developments have pushed them back into the spotlight. There are older interviews where Foxy Brown made remarks that people interpret as hinting at an inappropriate dynamic. Then there's the situation involving Aaliyah. Several industry insiders have alleged that JayZ showed interest in her while she was still a teenager, and that there was tension or competition between him and Dame Dash over her attention. Dame Dash himself has made public comments over the years that appear to line up with that general timeline. Things become even more complicated when Beyoncé enters the picture. The widely accepted narrative is that they met when she was 18. But there have been claims suggesting they actually crossed paths when she was 16 or 17, with allegations that JayZ was pursuing her while she was still underage. Gene Deal, who previously worked as Diddy's bodyguard, has gone on record claiming he saw JayZ with a teenage Beyoncé at industry events. In communities where people understand how power works, this dynamic raises serious concerns. A young artist trying to break through, especially a young woman, does not operate on equal footing with someone who holds that level of influence. When a figure like JayZ shows interest, career opportunities and personal boundaries can become dangerously intertwined. Dame Dash, JayZ's former partner and someone who witnessed his rise firsthand, has made remarks over the years that fuel questions about these timelines. He has spoken about JayZ's interest in younger women and has often appeared uneasy when pressed for details about specific relationships. Adding to the controversy is JayZ's choice to collaborate with R. Kelly on multiple projects, even after it was widely rumored within the industry that R. Kelly had inappropriate relationships with underage girls. Dame Dash has said he confronted JayZ over this, questioning how he could work with someone accused of abusing Aaliyah. When all of these allegations are viewed together, a troubling picture starts to form. Critics describe a powerful industry figure who allegedly used his status to pursue relationships with young women whose careers depended on his approval. This goes beyond questions of age alone. It raises issues of power imbalance, influence, and exploitation. And now attention is shifting to what is said to have happened at that mansion, where the situation reportedly escalated even further. Sources claim federal agents arrived at JayZ's Bel Air property with warrants, and this was anything but a routine visit. In hindsight, according to reports, this was not a low-level search. It was described as a coordinated raid involving multiple federal agents, formal warrants, and a targeted list of materials they intended to collect. Sources claim investigators recovered communications, financial documents, and other materials that could potentially back up allegations that have followed JayZ for years. If true, this evidence could present a very different narrative about how his power and influence were built and the tactics he allegedly relied on along the way. Authorities are said to have taken several electronic devices, including phones, computers, and servers. In modern investigations, digital data is often central. Messages, emails, payment records, and transfers all leave trails that can be analyzed. The key issue now is whether any of this material points to actual criminal conduct or merely behavior many would consider unethical. There is a clear legal line between questionable actions and prosecutable crimes, and federal prosecutors need solid proof of criminal violations to move forward. The fact that this is reportedly a federal case rather than a local one suggests the alleged activity may involve interstate issues or fall under federal law. That can include offenses such as trafficking, racketeering, or other crimes that trigger federal jurisdiction. JayZ's attorneys have stayed mostly silent, which is typical in situations like this. Legal teams often recommend saying nothing publicly while they evaluate what investigators have collected and what potential charges, if any, could be on the table. But this is where comparisons start raising eyebrows. Look at what is unfolding with Diddy. For decades, he appeared untouchable, building bad boy records into a massive empire and operating as if consequences did not apply to him. Now he is facing serious federal charges, and many of the accusations mirror the same themes being discussed here. Both men have been accused of leveraging their power to take advantage of younger artists. Both are alleged to have fostered environments where inappropriate conduct was normalized. Both have been accused of using influence to intimidate or silence those who might speak out. To some observers, it feels like federal authorities are finally digging deep into the hip-hop industry. First R. Kelly, then Diddy, and now possibly JayZ. It leaves a lot of people wondering who else is feeling the pressure right now. Reports suggest this was a full-scale federal operation, with multiple agents, official search warrants, and a targeted list of items investigators wanted to seize. Word is they recovered communications, financial records, and other materials that could potentially support allegations that have circulated for years. If verified, these documents could present a very different view of how JayZ built his empire and the methods he allegedly used to rise to the top. Authorities are said to have taken numerous electronic devices, including phones, computers, and servers. In today's world, digital evidence is critical. Texts, emails, and financial transactions all leave traces that can be analyzed. The key question is whether this material points to criminal conduct or simply ethically questionable decisions. There's a significant difference between being morally questionable and being a criminal, and federal prosecutors need proof of actual crimes to move forward. The fact this is a federal investigation rather than a local matter suggests potential violations that cross state lines or fall under federal jurisdiction, possibly including offenses like sex trafficking, racketeering, or other federal crimes. JayZ's legal team has remained largely silent, which is typical. Lawyers often advise their clients to avoid public statements while reviewing the evidence and assessing potential charges. Things get even more interesting when you look at what's happening with Diddy. The man who seemed untouchable for decades, who built bad boy records into a massive empire and appeared immune from consequences, now faces serious federal charges. Many of the allegations against him reflect patterns similar to those being discussed in connection with JayZ. Both men are accused of exploiting their power in the industry to take advantage of young artists, allegedly fostering environments where inappropriate behavior was normalized and using their influence to silence or intimidate victims. Observers have noted that it feels like federal authorities are finally digging deep into hip-hop. First R. Kelly, then Diddy, and now potentially JayZ. It leaves a lot of people wondering who else might be under scrutiny.